Hi, this is Elena with Black Sheep 303 Creative, and my project today is for the celebration of the brand new release from In the Susan's Garden line from Elizabeth Craft Designs. We have the design team showing off some fun projects, and this is mine using 4 of the new flower dyes. So the video is a little bit longer because I'm going to show you how I did all 4. So this is the Shasta Daisy. Cuts 3 sizes of petals, the little center pollen pieces, a stem, and 2 leaves, as you can see there. And on the top, that is my completed one. And then I will show you how I made this step by step. Now, bear in mind that Susan Tierney Coburn, who is the designer on these, she may have a different method for making these than I do, just because as a design team member, we had to kind of work off photos. She didn't have any tutorials before this came out. So just bear in mind that she may have some different techniques, and you may want to refer to her videos because she really is the authority on this. But I'll show you what I did to make mine. So I looked at a lot of photos. So in photos of Shasta Daisies, they do have these character lines that kind of run vertically up the petals. So I'm using my leaf pad and my leaf tool. These tools are part of the 4-piece Susan's toolkit, which is really important when making these flowers, as is the leaf pad that you see there, and then they'll have the molding pad, which is kind of the black, almost like mouse paddy looking pad, but it's a little bit thicker. And I'm going to do that on all 3 of these daisy pieces. And then I will take the smaller scoop tool and kind of go from the petal to the inside to create this scooped effect on the back side of the petal or the flower, and then you turn it over, and then Susan calls it stirring the pot. I'm taking my medium-sized ball stylus and just kind of pushing in the center in a circular fashion to get that kind of scooped up look on all 3 of the flower petals pieces. And to glue them together, I'm going to use Kids Choice Glue, which is this great glue that works perfectly for making these flowers. It's got a nice viscosity, but it dries completely clear. So you just have to it does take a little bit of time to figure out how to offset the petals exactly correctly to fill in and get a really full looking flower, as I've got there. But once you get it, I'd suggest just setting the petals in sort of off to the side the way you want them, and then adhering them together fairly quickly. Now for the centers, you have these tiny little yellow pieces, and I am just pushing them down in the center with my tiny ball stylus to get them to sort of cup up. These are going to sort of mimic the centers of Shasta Daisies by just grouping them together. So I'm taking a toothpick and adding adhesive just to the middle center, and then I'm going to take one of these and put it in the middle of the flower petals, and then I'm going to just add around them sort of just building a center kind of in rows as I sort of fit them around this middle one to get kind of a completed, fairly full center on this daisy. If you look at photos of Shasta Daisies, they have fairly prominent yellow centers. And so these little pieces, if you can get them layered just correctly, they do a nice job of mimicking that look. So I'm just trying to adhere the centers, put adhesive just in the middle on the back side, and then just kind of fit them together almost like a puzzle to create a nice round middle like you see on the completed one there on the left. So this does take a little time, but it's actually a lot quicker than you might imagine. And that is the completed flower. Very pretty. Now for my leaves and my stem, I'm going to add some shading with my Mowed Lawn Distress ink. So I'm just taking my blending tool and I'm just going around the edges of the leaves pretty randomly. I'm not going for any specific shading anywhere. I'm just trying to get some nice dimension added to the leaves and the stem. And then I'm going to flip them over on my leaf pad, take my pointy leaf tool, and then just draw a straight line up the back side. So it's going to be kind of the main vein line, if you will. Then I'm going to flip them over and fold back along that scored line so I can really get that line kind of nice and prominent. I'm going to take my PanPastels, it's the flower kit number 1 from Susan's Garden, And I'm using that bright green on a makeup sponge, and I'm just highlighting that vein right up the center of the leaf. And then I will add some additional vein lines. Oh, and I will do the same thing to the stem as well. And then I'll add some additional vein lines in kind of like a V fanning out pattern up on either side of the main vein line, as you often see on leaves. And from the photos, that looked like that's the kind of veins these leaves had. And then to shape them a little bit, I've grabbed my molding pad and the tweezers, and I'm going to fold along the grip it with the tweezers in the middle, fold along that line, and then flip it over and take the medium ball stylus and just go along the back, to curve along the back side to give the leaf a little bit of shaping and character, as you can see there. Really, really easy to do. And so then I will actually put those together, like add the leaves once we have the card going. Now these are the forget-me-nots, and I'd made some very, very blue forget-me-nots. So you can see they've got the little white centers, the blue petals, and the stem, and then there are actually 4 leaves. You'll only see me deal with 2 of the leaves here. I have 2 of the leaves already on my set, that little group that's up there on the upper left. Now it's much easier to build these on the card, so you won't actually see me build these. And there's the photo I used for reference, but I did want to have one done so you could sort of see what it looks like. But we'll get to that when the card is being made at the end. So bear with me. Now my paper I thought was a little bit too light, so I wanted to darken it down. So I'm using Blueprint Sketch and my blending tool, and I'm just kind of squishing like in a circular motion right on top of the petals to darken down the paper. I may have darkened it a little bit too much, but you get the feeling. And now I'm taking my leaf tool and I'm putting a line straight up the backside of each of the petals on this little small flower shape, just like I did on the leaves for the daisies. And I'm going to actually so now I'm going to bend the petals back along that line and take my white gel pen and I'm going to highlight that line in the center of each of the petals. Now I'm not going to go all the way up. I'm probably going to go a third of the way to half to just add that little white accent in the flower. And then I wind up kind of smushing down those folds in the leaves quite a bit. And I'm going to take my medium ball stylus and just push down in the center to help those leaves kind of cup up a bit and get kind of more of a flower shape. So again, just highlighting the leaves on the little white line in the center of the leaves about a third to half the way up the petal, then pushing down in the center. Now these tiny little white pieces are the middles, and I am just taking my CT4 Spectrum Noir marker and dotting ever so lightly in the very center of each of those die cut pieces, because that marker will spread and I don't want the entire thing going yellow. And then in the center of that, I'm going to use my black micron 0.03 pen and drawing another center in the middle, so a black center in the middle of the yellow dot in each of the middles that will go on the flowers. And then to shape these just a little bit, I'm taking my small ball stylus and pressing down in the center of these again. Oh, actually, that might be the medium ball stylus again. So to adhere the middles to the flowers, I'm going to take some glue, do the same thing I did with the middles of the Shasta Daisy, and I'm putting glue on the back side of the white center, and I'm just going to stick this in the center of the petals. Now I purposely tried to offset, they're like these little sort of prongs that come off in the middle of that white piece. I'm offsetting those between the petals themselves so that like the prongs are going in between the petals, because that kind of looked more like what the flowers actually look like in the photo. Now Forsythia is one of my favorite flowers ever. So this is the Forsythia. You can see those cut the petals. We also have leaves and 2 branches. So I have die cut the petals out of yellow and the leaves or the branches out of green. And you can see these the branches have these little sort of prongy pieces that are, I believe, those little pieces coming off the branches. So I'm going to leave those green, but I'm going to color the rest of the branch with my TN8 Spectrum Noir marker to get the branch brown. It's a lot easier to color a green piece darker than to turn a brown piece green on those little prong leaves. So that's why I did it this way. And it's really, really easy to do. And then in the centers of my yellow flowers, I took my B02 Spectrum Noir Illustrator marker and I dotted the very centers of those to give them a nice little orange middle. And then on my molding mat, I'm just pushing down in the center with the medium ball stylus to get them to cup up. And they are really cupped pretty majorly. So I'm taking my tiny ball stylus and doing it again to really get them to kind of almost fold in on each other. When you look at the photos of Forsythia, they really, really do look like that. Now the leaves are similar to the Shasta Daisy leaves. Really, all the leaves kind of get shaped a very similar way. So I didn't show you the forget-me-not leaves. They are exactly the same as the Shasta Daisy leaves. These are just a little more straight up and down. So I'm drawing a vein line up the middle and then some character lines that go straight up and down, pinching them in the center with my tweezers, and then using the medium ball stylus again to just add a little bit of shaping to the back of the ends of the leaves, because they tend to sort of stick almost straight up and down off those branches. Not so much curving action as you have on like the forget-me-nots or the Shasta Daisies. So I'll put these all together on the card themselves, but it's going to be somewhat like this. Slip the leaves into those little prong pieces and the buds along the branch. Now here's the eucalyptus. I'm making this a silver dollar eucalyptus, so I cut the entire piece out of green and then colored the branch with my TN8 marker, just like I did on the Forsythia. And then I'm going to take my Pine Needles Distress ink and add some shading to the leaves. So eucalyptus leaves, if you look at photos, they're really kind of two-toned. Like they've got sort of a dark section and then a lighter section that's a bit random. And they have sort of a white-gray film over them in parts. And the die actually adds these embossed lines. So I'm just folding back along those embossed lines, taking my finger in my picket fence distress ink, and I'm highlighting those veins because they are very prominent when you look at photos of silver dollar eucalyptus. And then I'm just taking my finger and adding more of the ink very lightly kind of over certain sections of the flower or of the petals or leaves, leaves, to get that sort of filmy white look that eucalyptus has. And you know what I'm talking about if you've seen eucalyptus. And it looks like that. Then I'm going to take a what are those things called? Cotton swab. And use it to color the buds white on the green. Now, they're not going to go completely white because obviously picket fence it's a little bit translucent. But it does lighten up the green cardstock quite a bit because the buds, from what I could tell from photos, they tend to be sort of this gray-green color. So I'm going over the white buds now with my Nuvo drops. These are jewel drops in gray mist. So it's translucent. So you're going to see the cardstock underneath it, but it's going to have that gray tint, and then the white underneath it helps keep it looking gray, but also has a hint of green. So here are all my components for the card. I have a 5 1/4 by 5 1/4 inch card base out of white soft finish cardstock. And then I have scored this at 2 5/8 across the center horizontally because it's going to fold up like so to create the easel card effect when it's done. So I'm only put adhesive across the lower part of that. Now my background is going to be this piece of 5 1/4 by 5 1/4 blue polka dot paper from the Thinking About Rio de Janeiro paper pack, but it needs some weight behind it, so I'm going to add a piece of 85-pound white soft finish cardstock. And then this frame piece is brand new. It's from the Frame It Stitch Circles dies. Brand new today from Garden Notes as well. And there are all kinds of shapes with these like cute stitched frames. And I cut that out of white and then silver gray cardstock. And then my greeting is from, ironically, the Christmas collection stamp set. And I just fussy cut that out and then adhered it to some green paper with some rounded corners there. And that'll go on the inside of my card. And that's what's going to hold the easel in place. So I'm adhering this polka dot piece to the 85-pound white soft finish cardstock to give it some weight so it can hold the flowers when it stands up. And then I'm going to adhere it onto the card front. And again, just adhesive on the lower part, as you see there, so that the upper part is still free to pop up when the easel action happens. And I'm going to use some liquid glue to adhere the frame into the center of my card front. And then I will have some 6mm adhesive, or it might be 10mm. Yeah, it's 10mm on the back side of my gray circle. That was like sort of what was left over when I cut out the frame from a gray piece of paper. And those fit together very nicely. I probably could have done a slightly better job of getting those to fit perfectly. So just take a little more time if that matters a lot to you, but really you don't even notice it when I'm done. Now I'm going to build my flowers. So this is the Forsythia branch. I'm adding adhesive right along the back side, not a huge amount. It's again the Kids' Choice glue. And now I'm going to dip the little petals, just the bottoms of the petals, into the glue and adhere those to the branch. I'm pulling up the little prongy branches and I'm adding glue to the very, very end of the leaves and then fitting it under the little leaf prongs. I'm sure that's a technical term. And then again, adding adhesive just to the base of the flower petals and then just kind of grouping them together along the branch as I go to get that sort of full branchy look that Forsythia has, where it's just got like flowers all along the branch. And I tend to sort of add a few and then let one area kind of set up a little bit and then go to a different area, and then I'll go back to the first area to fit more in, just so I'm not like bumping ones that I just stuck down off, because you are trying to kind of group them together and like overlapping and things like that. And I knew I wanted one of my daisies to go in the upper right, so I'm using that to figure out my spacing on my second Forsythia branch. And so you can see I've got 3 daisies now. And I'm just making sure that I'm not gluing down the little leaf prongy pieces accidentally. And then again, just adding adhesive to the back sides of the lower part of the Forsythia, and then you can see I've basically completed a lot of that branch. Now I've trimmed apart the eucalyptus and I'm using the upper portion. I'm going to set this behind my sort of main daisy here in the upper right. Always a good idea to have like some background foliage to fill in. Now I suppose I can always add stuff later, and you will see me do that as the card gets closer to completion. But I try to go get the things that are going to be in the background down first whenever I possibly can. Now I made a smaller daisy just by using 2 of the middle-sized die and then 1 of the small die, instead of using all 3 sizes of the die. So that is, something you have the option to do on your own. When you get them, you can change them up as you like. Although I know Susan really likes to see them look realistic, which is also extremely pretty. Now you can see I've glued down my forget-me-not stem here. Got my picture for reference, and I'm just doing the same thing I did with the Forsythia. I'm dipping the very center of the petals into the glue and then just adhering them kind of in a clump as shown in the photos to get the correct look of the forget-me-nots and how they sort of grow naturally. And I knew I was going to put my daisy where it is there, so I wanted to have that to know how I needed to fill in. I'm going to grab some foam tape to bump this daisy up off the back, just because I didn't want it to squish down too many of the Forsythia, the forget-me-nots, so I'm using that to adhere that in place right like so. And now I'm going to kind of fill in the rest of the area with the remaining forget-me-nots and the eucalyptus pieces. I did have 2 eucalyptus branches that I wound up using and cutting apart. And then I decided I need a little more Forsythia, so I had an additional Forsythia that I had done. So I cut a little piece of branch, and I'm just filling in. And then these are the daisy leaves that I'm going to add around here and there to kind of fill out the rest of the arrangement. I did trim those down a little bit and then just add glue to the ends and sort of slip them in around the daisies in there. I'm filling in my Forsythia a little bit in the upper left. And I will now I'm gonna, so I had one more forget-me-not, and then I decided, oh wait, I need some more eucalyptus leaves. So I'm going to kind of trim one off and stick it under there and take that forget-me-not off first before I get my eucalyptus leaf down. So I'll add that to the background and then add one more forget-me-not into the upper left, I guess. Now for my greeting, I'm putting this on the inside, and it's fairly thick cardstock, so it is going to hold the front in place when you do the easel action. I'm using 10mm adhesive on the back of this. Sometimes you can add foam tape to the back. That will make sure that your card front will stay standing. And afterwards I decided, I need a little more polka dots. So I did cut 2 strips and add some 6mm adhesive to the back of those and add those on either side of the greeting. It would have been easier, however, to do just one strip, put that down first, and then put the greeting over it. But I didn't realize it at the time. So as you know, my cards always evolve. So if you're going to do this yourself, I would put one strip down first and then put the greeting over it. And that's the completed project. And you can see, really fun, pretty easy. I mean, it didn't take that long to do this card. Maybe 2 or 3 hours, probably, once I knew what I was doing with the flowers. Which might seem like a long time, but really for the result, I don't think it's too bad. And I love the new dies. I think they're absolutely amazing. So hopefully I've inspired you to check those out. They are all available today on the Elizabeth Craft Designs blog, and the link to the blog post with all the design projects is available in the video description as well. If you liked the video, I'd appreciate it if you give me a thumbs up, and I love getting comments, so please leave me a comment. Like hearing from you. If you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, I would love it if you do that as well. And here are 2 more projects I've done in the past using Garden Notes dies, so check those out. And have an amazing day. Thanks!